and this one we're going to talk about Warner Bros. Is going exclusive with HBO Max, starting the breakup process with movie theaters such as Cinemark, AMC, and it's beginning on Christmas Day of all days. They're not being very joyful and merciful in the holidays to the movie theaters. Wonder Woman 1984 will be being released on HBO Max concurrently with movie theaters at the same time. That's not what is driving this segment. What's driving this segment is that they also said, hey, the next 17 movies that are going to be released from the Warner Brothers film studio, those are also going to be released on HBO Max at the same exact time as they come out in theaters. So what's your initial thoughts as our resident kind of movie buff?
Thanks for that. No, business news aside, I am extremely excited for this. HBO is my favorite streaming service of all of the ones, despite what different callers might say. We'll get into that later. But yeah, no, this is big news. I think it's really interesting for what it means for movie theaters. But yeah, for HBO Max, which we're calling it that now, this is awesome. I'm pumped for these movies. A lot of these movies, Suicide Squad, as we've seen, the other ones. Yeah, I'll definitely watch it.
There's some others. You've got Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Yeah.
You got the Dune remake, The Matrix 4, and then most importantly, LeBron's sequel to forever copy Michael Jordan, the Space Jam sequel.
Did you put that on him? Yeah, it could be a huge flop.
I will 100% put that on him. Come on.
I will be watching it. Do not care. I'm sure it'll be awful. It'll ruin my childhood. That's okay. I'll still ride for LeBron. But
get back on track.
Sure. What's your thoughts, Pate?
I'm with you. I think this is a great move. And despite what your fan favorite Christopher Nolan said, which we'll get to here in a sec, like you said, I think it's a long-term play. I think it's also a way to help AT&T, who owns Warner Media, who owns Warner Bros. Studio and HBO Max streaming service and HBO. I think it's a way to help get their stock price out from the COVID doldrums, and because they're one of the most indebted companies in the world, they have to be able to repay. They might actually be the most indebted company in the world. So, and you gotta repay your loans. So the way to do that, is maybe by selling more stock, and they got to get that number up if they want to do that. So anyway, I digress. I think it's a great term long move. I think it's where we were headed anyways. I've liked the movies. I don't like the movie experience. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what I mean by that is I like seeing a good movie on a good screen with great sound. I don't necessarily want to go sit in a chair with who God knows what happened, 3 hours before that in the chair, and the floor is always sticky and the popcorn costs
might be related
salary. So that's what I mean by I don't like the movie experience. I'm aware that obviously you have places like Austin, local fan favorite Alamo Drafthouse, as well as some other renovated theaters where they change the seats. Woo! But I know. But
it vibrates sometimes too.
Yeah.
Might add to that stickiness.
But, I don't care. I'd rather see it in my house. And I think finally we're getting to a world where that's going to become the norm. And I think HBO has done this because Disney has already put their toe in the water with doing this with the recent Mulan release, as well as I think was it a Trolls movie? Maybe also had this earlier in the pandemic. But I think the real catalyst was the fact that Tenet flopped, which was a Christopher Nolan film. He demanded that it have a theatrical release during COVID, and it proved, hey, people aren't going to theaters right now. And we have to get these movies out. You just can't keep stacking them. Your boy needs to see the new James Bond movie at some point. So I think it's great that they're releasing Wonder Woman 1984 first, because apparently the reviews are great for it, because that's going to give them a good kickoff point. Also, they need to actually get their subscriber number up, because they didn't have the greatest of rollouts for HBO Max. It was very confusing. They had HBO Go, HBO Now, HBO Max all live at this exact same time when it was launched, and they also didn't have distribution deals in place with Amazon or Roku, and they're still missing one of those. It's Roku, which happens to be what both of my TVs are, and so I
Ah,
Google Chromecast my HBO Max onto my TVs, and I hate it.
wow.
And they still
Wow.
haven't solved it. So
Yeah.
diatribe over. But do you want to hear what Christopher Nolan said though?
Oh, yes, I do.
I got the quote. I got the quote. I got.
Let's go. Let's hear
He
it.
said some of our industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out they were working for the worst streaming service. Boom.
All right, Nolan. All right, chill out.
I
Yeah.
know. It's like chill because while it might be the worst streaming service right now in terms of numbers, it's not in terms of content quality.
Quality. Yeah, it's always been great.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So, it's like I don't agree with him, Matt. He did have other things he said. That's just the quote that's made headlines. But it's not just him that is feel aggrieved by this. Other talent and entertainment workers are not exactly thrilled on the news, mainly because a lot of their pay and compensation is tied to the success, the box office success of movies. So they don't know how they're going to get paid if all these are being released and viewership is being cannibalized by these streaming services. What HBO Max did with Gal Gadot is they paid her 10 mil. That's a nice Christmas Day present to release Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas Day. I just think you're going to not only see net new subscribers for HBO, because each one of those people who subscribes to see one of those movies is $15 a month in the pocket, which is
It's for itself right there.
which is high. It's the highest of all of them, I think, by far, and except maybe the Disney bundle. But you get 3 streaming services for that, number one. But if you have the best content, you can charge the most money. Not outrageously charged, but you can still charge the most money.
Yeah, we saw Disney Plus doing the $30 for Mulan. I mean,
Yeah, on top of what
on
you're
top of, yeah.
Yeah, that's like how I see ESPN Plus, also part of the Disney Plus bundle, where it's, hey, you are paying $4 a month or whatever it is, and you still have to pay $70 to watch a UFC package or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
It's like, well, why am I paying for this monthly anyway? What's the point?
Kind
So
of
I
pay
still
per
think
view,
there's
yeah.
a lot of work to do. I read a whole Financial Times article about Disney Plus and they're going all in on streaming, which I love. It's going to be bumpy. It's not going to be seamless. You have to change a lot of viewership habits.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, going to that unrest, I mean, like all these, actors are probably up in arms because, I mean, with any kind of disruption, people that are successful with the current, scenario or the
yeah,
current system are going to be pissed because there's no clarity on what's going to happen. But I really think this is good in the long term. I think it was a long time coming, and this was really the excuse to really kick it off and start this disruption on a large scale, and it's probably going to continue.
yeah, it took a big movie studio to finally make the call and to start doing
A
it.
very
If
big
it
one.
doesn't work, you can go back to your same volume-based movie theater chain incentive, business model that you had for 4 million years before this, or since Charlie Chaplin was putting out feature films on the silver, on the screen. But what I think is they're not seeing is however many really good movies there are, how many bad movies are there that you are not willing to go and pay extra money for to go sit in a theater and watch, but you might be willing to watch it if it's on your TV and you have a
Yes.
decent enough sound system at home and TV, and you don't have to pay anything extra to watch it, but it's going to be just entertaining enough that you will.
Right. It's the whole Netflix strategy of just,
Yeah.
quantity.
Yes and no. It depends. Netflix spends, I think it's over 13 billion on content a year. Outrageous number. And they do the throw everything against the wall, see what sticks strategy. But now that they've seen success with shows like Queen's Gambit, which is not a sequel or a remake of a previous, content, intellectual property piece, then if they can start making their own good quality content, which they're going to have to do as other streaming services rip away all of the good stuff that's been on Netflix, i.e. The Office, The West Wing, Parks and Rec, or just to name a few that are all leaving. Parks might not be leaving this month. I know The Office and West Wing are leaving this month. And you saw Friends last year leave Netflix. all of these, you're going to see all these different pieces of content that people love, whether they're nostalgic or they're good and new, but they're going to all sit behind their own little paywalls, and you're going to have to pay every month to get the access code to that paywall. And I'm calling it the fiefdom, each little fiefdom of you have the HBO Max fiefdom over here. You've got the Netflix one, which is bigger and badder, but is if they don't own their own content, they can't really do much about it when the contract gets up and it gets taken away by the original holder.
I couldn't agree more, man. I think you nailed it on the head.
Yes, excellent.
Knowing full well you did.
Speaking of movie theaters, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But I mean, so okay, two other questions. So, are movie theaters dead? Have we arrived at that?
Not yet, but I think this is the start of it. I think you brought up a good point. You might want to talk about it a little more, but the different experience of movie theaters and kind of doing a smaller scale, limited release kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you'll see them pivot to more of it's going to become more of a boutique business, I feel like, unless this entire streaming, I don't want to say experiment, but the endeavor is a failure, which I don't think it's going to be. I think people like convenience and paying less for it, to a point at least. And what you'll see is think of like an iPic or a Draft House, these upper echelon theaters, but what you'll see is the movies like a Tenet, like a James Bond, like a Star Wars, like a Marvel, movies that are meant to be seen with really great sound and with large screens, not necessarily around a ton of people. That doesn't matter. You don't care about that. You care about a good seat and the experience of seeing the movie and going with whoever you want to go with. I think you'll see higher service movie theaters, like more attentive service, even more so, as well as maybe more tailored like offerings. So the bad movies are kept out of the theaters because they just are going to go straight to the streaming services. And like what was the Netflix one? Was it Bird Box?
Oh, Bird Box, yeah.
That would never have gone to a theater. Or in our world we're envisioning 2 years from now, that would still never go to a theater. Even if it was made for theater, it would only go on Netflix like it did, have good success, even though it was a B movie. But Tenet would still go to a theater.
Right, they're blockbusters. They're ones that they're safe. They know it's going to draw a lot of people. I think you're right. Whether it's very soon or it takes 5-10 years, who knows? But this is the start of it. And kind of to that note of movie theaters, I mean, these things take up a lot of real estate, and if they're not bringing in the revenue, in a year or two from now, do they look to sell to places like Walmart, Amazon, all these warehouses that can use this real estate, especially when they're, we got Cinemark like out in Pflugerville, on the outskirts of towns that really don't make much sense because people aren't going to drive there. But having a warehouse for like Amazon to do a fulfillment center might make more sense, and they're going to make some money with that.
Yeah, I think that tracks a lot with Amazon was looking at potentially buying JCPenney's earlier this year when that stock was way at its lowest point, and to turn them into they get the JCPenney's brand and to do whatever they want with it, potentially have a private label line, and then they get to use all of their storefronts as mini distribution centers. Either way, Jeff Bezos is going to win in the end.
Well, we know that already.
No, I know. But my last question so how do we think the other streaming services are going to react in the immediate time frame? I think you'll see Disney Plus, not yet, but I think you'll eventually see them, and it may be as early as Black Widow, Avengers Black Widow. You'll start to see the bigger IP outside of, Matrix obviously is well known. So is Dune, and so is Godzilla, King Kong, and Suicide Squad. But none of them are going to match a Marvel movie, an Avengers movie specifically. Right. So you may start seeing Disney Plus start to do the exact same thing. They may do what they did
Exact?
with Mulan. What?
Yeah, not no. There's one big difference. Are they going to charge for it?
Yes, I think so.
Marvel, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so you'll see that with Disney Plus. Netflix, I don't think is gonna. I don't think they count. I think they're since they don't have any distribution deals with theaters, anyways. Maybe they'd get some movies if they could be willing to pay several $100 million guaranteed to a studio and have a viewership incentive tied to it. That might do it. And speaking of viewership incentives, throwback, that's how you're going to start seeing all these contracts be worked out for movies that are released onto streaming platforms, I think, for entertainment workers and actors and producers, directors, all of them. And so what are streaming services are there? Amazon Prime, kind of the same thing, may take, as Netflix, may take a few movies that would have gone to theaters during coronavirus and just pay up an ungodly amount of money just to have it. Only they get to have it exclusively.
Well, the question really is who's going to grab Top Gun Maverick? That's all I want to know.
I can't remember what studio made it.
I don't remember either.
I know it's not on the list of 17 though. So I don't
know. I was looking for it.
So we'll have to see. But that may have been was it potentially was it a 21st Century Fox movie?
Man, I have no idea. Like the first one came out way too long ago for me to know. Before we were born.
Paramount. And Paramount is owned by, I think it's owned by Disney, maybe.
I'm okay with that.
Maybe. It may be owned by NBC Universal. Anyway, we're off topic. So I think the streaming services with existing movie theater deals, Universal. Geez, I can't believe I blanked on Universal. So Universal, Disney and Warner Media, which is Warner Bros., which is owned by AT&T. Those are going to be the ones that are going to start pulling stuff from theaters, or at least showing them concurrently, I think, to allow people who want to see it in the theater to still go do so. And I think you're still going to see in a complete skew towards in-home viewing of all these movies. I will be one of them.
Same here. Wonder Woman first.
Wonder Woman first. Just like I said, just in time for Christmas, delivering a lump of coal for AMC and Cinemark. And Alamo, I guess. But no, that's a business model that's been in trouble for a while. We're just seeing the acceleration of that now.
Absolutely.
This is the way, speaking of.
Disney Plus, there you go. You catch up.
I know. I think they will. Anyway, like, rate, subscribe. Thank you for listening, everybody. See you next time.